Let me see a thumbs up if you can hear me very well. It's raining, so sometimes I'm worried that my audio is not loud enough. Okay, you can just put it in the chat. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Theo. Thank you for coming early. Thank you, Treasure. Thank you, Jamila. Thank you, Dwayne. We appreciate you. Thank you, Stasio. My name is Fola Folayo, and I am the Communications and Partnerships Manager at the CCIJ, Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism. If you're new to us, the CCIJ is a collaborative platform that foster investigative projects, promoting cross-border journalism, and of course, focusing on underreported stories. We have team members from across the globe, and every month like this, we try to do professional learning sessions so that our community can be developed, and so that we can also meet, we can collaborate, and we can network as well. So this afternoon, it's afternoon my time. I live in Kigali, Rwanda, so it's about 4 p.m. right now. We have Olaya Argueso. She's going to be hosting today's session, and I'll be handing over to her just to let you know that if you have any questions at any time, please put the questions in a chat box, and I'll be making sure letting Olaya know when there is. Let's begin, right? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're breaking up a bit, Fola, so I think I just understood. Sorry. Not sure if you gave me the cue to start, Fola, because you were breaking up a bit, but I will take your having muted yourself as a yes. So I'll start by sharing my screen. First of all, I mean, thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation to share this session with you today on how to successfully pitch cross-border stories. And before we, and welcome to everyone to the session. Before we start already, talking about what has brought us here, just a few words about myself. My name is Olaya. I am an investigative and a data journalist with over 20 years experience in the field. I have worked for different outlets, mainly, or at least half of my career in Spain, where I originally come from. I've worked for Cadena Ser, which is the main commercial radio network in Spain. And then later on, as a freelance data journalist, my work has been published in outlets like El País, which is the main newspaper in Spain. Also with Agencia F, which is the public news agency, or with El Confidencial, which is a native online publication. They do a lot of things, but they are one of the pioneering data outlets in Spain. So I also worked with them. And then in the last 5 years, so between 2019 and 2024, I worked as editor-in-chief for CORRECTIV, which is a German non-for-profit investigative newsroom. And I led all the international collaborations and all the cross-border stories that our newsroom did, and that's why I'm happy to be here today and share what I have learned in that during that time, which I hope will help you be able to pitch better stories. So what we're going to do over the next hour is look at the most common mistakes made when pitching stories, using real life examples to illustrate those mistakes, and we will learn how to avoid them. As I said, the advice that I'm going to give you is based on my experience as an editor, receiving a lot of pitches for that kind of stories. But this advice and the kind of work that you need to do to be able to get the support of an editor for your cross-border story is the same kind of tasks and the same energy and kind of effort that you need to do to write a good grant application. So that's why I think my advice is also helpful in that case. Anyway, for a lot of grants, one of the main requirements is to get, apart from having a very good story, obviously, it's to have a letter of intent from an outlet, at least one outlet that is committed to publishing your story. So that's why I think that, you know, once again, this advice, even if it's from my position as an editor, is also, you know, good also to get more robust grant applications. So what I would like you to do next is to take a look at the email that I'm going to show you for a couple of minutes. And I would like you to imagine that you are an editor for an outlet that produces mainly written articles. And you are receiving this email on any given day unrequested, which is something that usually happens. As I said, this is based on real life examples. I would like, as I said, to take a look at this email and think a couple of minutes which mistakes, which issues do you find in the email, and to write them in the chat. As I said, you have to put yourself in the shoes of an editor. You receive this email, you work for a written outlet, and you have to decide, I mean, whether you want to work with this person or not. So please tell me in the chat why, I mean, what kind of elements in the email would put you off as an editor in accepting this request. I guess on hope that the instructions are clear. So here's the email. So take him a couple of minutes to go through it. As I said, it is based on real life examples, so I haven't made anything up. So that's why I think it's interesting to look at it and see what you can spot as issues that can be problematic from an editor's and in the end from a grant giver's point of view when deciding whether to support this proposal, this request or not. So as I said, feel free to provide your thoughts in the chat, and then we will go through the main issues with this email, which, as I said, I mean, it's based on proposals and requests that I myself have received. So I cannot see the chat, Fola, but I don't know if you can maybe go through answers in the chat. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, I can see the chat now. Okay, there is no clear storyline. Definitely that's an issue. Yeah, it's been sent to many editors, and you need to contact the right person, definitely. Any other thoughts on that? I see no topic, no hypothesis. You're definitely right. The deadline is 2 days. That's definitely an issue. That's a big joker. Okay, the tone of the letter. I mean, I must say, obviously, I mean, it's not that I received this email from a single person. I've combined a couple of emails to make, you know, a stronger case for this workshop. But I mean, as I said, I haven't made anything up. I mean, those are literally wordings that I have received while being at CORRECTIV, and, you know, people expecting from me to react. Okay, so I mean, you have identified a lot of the topics or the issues that I found problematic in this email, but let's go through each of them. Yeah, some of you already mentioned that. So they send this email on September 13th, and then they say that the deadline is in a couple of days. So apart from the fact that they say, I mean, I need an answer from you next week, and it's only 2 days, so it's obviously they are just copy pasting the same email. Yeah, this is obviously an issue, and it doesn't certainly make us look good if we send a pitch just 48 hours before the deadline is due. It shows little consideration for the person receiving the pitch. The time is just, I mean, their time is just as valuable as yours, and it's very naive to think that you are on top of the list of priorities for that day. So don't expect anyone to just, you know, drop whatever they are doing to answer your request, because they have probably much more to do than just that. But apart from that, which is pretty obvious, for me as an editor, it shows that you have not managed your time properly. So if you could not plan this very basic step of your project, because in the end, a cross-border investigation is a complex project. How I mean, why should I trust you as an editor, you know, to manage a whole collaboration if you weren't able to just, you know, plan accordingly and knowing that the deadline was coming? So for me, it's a huge red flag in terms of time management. And it also makes you look unprofessional. And that's also something that you don't want to happen. And it makes you look desperate, because even if you don't want people to feel or to think of you that you are desperate. And I use this word specifically because even if they are not writing that, what the editor is understanding that is happening, under the booth, is that you have this very ambitious list of outlets that you have been contacting, you know, to pitch your story, and you're running out of options the closer the deadline gets, and no one wants to feel like they're second best. So once again, plan enough time for your pitching, so that even if you have, you know, reached the bottom of your list, even if the outlets that were your darlings don't react to your request or just reject it, so even if you reach the end of the list, that you make sure that they receive your request with enough time to consider it, and to, which is most probably the case, to set up a call with you, because even if they know you, even if if they like your story, no one is going to send you this letter of intent just, you know, on the spot. They will certainly want to set up a call with you to learn more about the story. So you definitely need to plan more time for that. And I mean, I think it's not such a problem, since, I mean, most of the grant-giving organizations publish their calls a couple of months in advance, and usually around the same time of the year. So there is enough time to you know, to plan your pitching. And even if you do everything okay, and I mean, you tick all the boxes, it may not work with them, because, I mean, people have, you know, already their publication plans, they have their agendas, and your story may not fit. But they may recommend you to other editors. So that's why it's important, you know, to look professional and to look like a trustworthy partner. Another thing that you identified, some of you mentioned, is the lack of information about the story. I mean, this is a little bit parodic, to be honest. This sentence, like the only thing they mention is that they want to investigate the links between one topic and another one. But some pitches I have received don't include much more context about what they want to do. And I can understand that that you want to be careful because you can fear that they may steal your story, but you need to find the right balance between, I mean, not saying anything at all about your story or giving away too much. I mean, you need to work on your pitch, because most of the time you only have one opportunity to pitch that a story either to an editor or to a grant giver. So you really want to nail it. And you don't need a full-fledged story ready to publish. No one is expecting that from you. But at least, I mean, there are certain things that, I mean, you need to show that you have some ground covered already. One of the things that you need to show is that you have pre-researched your topic. A mistake that some people make, and I mean, I admit I also have been there, is to think maybe, okay, I have this hunch or I have this hint about a story that could be potentially something important. And you see, okay, it would be a cross-border story, so let's apply for a grant in the hope that they fund your pre-research efforts. I mean, no one is going to do that. Let's be realistic about it. Grant givers work very hard to get, to raise every single cent that they invest then in funding cross-border investigations. So they really want to be sure that you're going to be, I mean, that you have a story, that it's a solid story, and that there are, I mean, the odds are high that you are going to be successful. So you definitely need to show that. No one is going to, to fund, for you to find out whether your hypothesis is right or not. This having said, once again, you don't have to, to pitch, to write a pitch in the form of a, of a full-fledged story, but keep it short and to the point. And something that I have experienced is people being very vague about the topic that they are investigating without really saying, I mean, what was the story? What was unique about their story? And another temptation that people try to, or something that people try to do to impress editors or grant givers, is to oversell your story. And I would advise you not to do that, because once again, talking about, looking professional and being a trustworthy partner, if you prove, I mean, if you say that you can prove something, you have to be sure that you can deliver, because you will be measured against that standard. And if you cannot, deliver what you promised, this will only damage your reputation. And even if you think that, investigative journalism is a large group of people, is actually quite a small bubble. And as I said, if you are perceived as someone who is not trustworthy, it will damage your reputation across the industry. So I mean, the word will spread. So that's why also I would advise you against trying to meet unrealistic expectations from grant givers or from editors. So, and be very clear and honest about what you can and what you cannot deliver. So, yeah, don't promise what you cannot deliver. And once again, I mean, I understand that there might be a fear that that the story gets stolen from an editor. If I mean, haven't never experienced that, but I can understand that could be a fear. But I think as I said, you have to find the right balance between giving away names or too much information, names, or putting sources at risk, between that and being too vague in regards to the story that you're trying to sell. So you have to make it attractive enough and also understandable enough for editors and grant givers alike to understand. For instance, if the topic you are reporting on is an underreported topic, and that means that there might not be so much awareness about it. So you really need to sell your story properly, so that they understand why they should fund your investigation. Another thing that I find very, very problematic about the wording of this email and the way this person is thinking, is that they just write. I mean, I mentioned, imagine I ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of an editor receiving this email that works for a written outlet, and they just write straight away that they plan a video as the main output of their story, which shows to me that they are not, I mean, they just copy pasted, as I said, the email, and they didn't even, they didn't take the time to customize and to really investigate what kind of outlet they were pitching to. And this is why I would advise you to, to know your customer. This expression, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It comes from banking, among other industries, and it means, it is also abbreviated as KYC, as you can see there, and it's an expression that they use to say, okay, you need to investigate your business partners to make sure that they are not just criminals trying to launder money or whatever, which in this case for me translates as look for the proper outlet for your story. And in doing that, you should ask yourself, some questions. The first one for me is whether the topic is relevant for the outlet that I'm pitching to. And that would also apply to whether the topic is relevant for the organization that I am applying to for a grant. In the case of the outlet, I mean, I remember while being at CORRECTIV does a lot of topics, but one of the things that they don't do is human rights stories. They may do stories where human rights violations play a role, but they don't write stories where human rights violations are like the core of it. And still, I received quite a few stories whose core was exactly human rights. So what showed to me that the person pitching the story, even if it was very well meant, hadn't taken a look at CORRECTIV's website. The same goes for the next question, which would be to ask yourself whether the audience for this outlet is actually my target group, the right target group for my story. Also, have they done similar stories to the one you are proposing? If that's the case, that might not be a deterrent for you to pitch the story to them, but you need to show how can your investigation add up to their work. And going back again to my time at CORRECTIV, I remember this case where a group of young students, young journalists, some of them were still journalism students, they had a story about how European companies producing rubber for tires for cars, bikes, and whatever, they were driving deforestation and displacement of the local population in certain areas in Cameroon. And they knew that one of our reporters had been doing a lot of work investigating how those companies were were lobbying for watering down European laws that were meant to hold companies accountable for their supply chains. So, I mean, they specifically addressed that. I mean, the previous work in their when they contacted us to show that what they had could, further. I mean, bring our own reporting further in showing that it was not only in the in Brussels where this lobbying was taking place that it was an issue. I mean, what they showed is we had a practical example of the kind of issues that can come up within the supply chains and why it's important and why these companies are actually lobbying. So in the end, both investigations, were complementary and both integrated in the final story that we published with them. So regarding this aspect, what I would say is do your homework, look for the outlets that can be a good match for your story. And it may not always be the largest newsroom in the country. That is also a temptation, and it's pretty human to think, okay, yeah, let's be ambitious and go for the most important outlets in the country. But it may be just a smaller community or local outlet to whom the story really matters. They might be a better partner for your story. And as you know, grant givers really matter about impact, and impact is not always possible just by publishing, getting a headline in the front page of a larger outlet. Sometimes are these smaller outlets that are really engaged and in contact with their communities that can drive change in a more significant way. And also on the, there's also a bonus to that. You may get more love from them and attention from smaller outlets, because larger newsrooms are usually flooded with requests whenever a grant deadline is due. They receive, a lot of requests. So, smaller outlets who are not so used to get so much attention may devote more time and resources and engage more with your story. So yeah, that is also something that you would need to consider. And then the last thing that I would like to just highlight from this example is, this what I call the no worries part of the email, or the no worries email. What you can read here, right? So they say that this outlet has, a dedicated team, that they have worked out every detail, and they just have already estimated how much time on my side, supposing I am the editor receiving this page, how much time my team would need to invest in this investigation. Well, that's just, not true. And it's not ill meant, obviously. They want just to give this impression that everything is that working with them is not going to mean so much effort on the editor's side. But the truth is that you cannot underestimate the workload of your partner. Because whenever I receive this kind of email, like no worries, we have everything covered, that's when I really started to worry, because it made clear for me that they didn't understand how this kind of cooperations work, because no one is going to publish the story just as it comes out of your computer, because press and information laws may be different across countries, but something that they usually have in common is that the publications are liable for whatever they publish. So no one is going to publish your text just as it is. It's very naive to think that. And there are, that there are tons of steps before your story gets published. So since they are going to be liable, they will need to understand why are you, how are you investigating your story? Why are you reaching those conclusions? How are you proving your points? What evidence do you have? They are going to fact check every single assumption that you make. They will strongly edit your story, and they will ask a lot of questions. So be ready and accept that. And then there are also other internal processes. There are different, each kind of outlet has their own production processes. They have their own writing styles. They may have style guides that need to be followed. So, there is a lot of work to do. So just do not say no worries. Embrace that there are working processes that you need to adhere to, that you need to respect, and plan enough time for them. Because once again, this is a way to, to build trust with this outlet, and to, and to show yourself as a professional and trustworthy partner. And in some grant applications, there is also this part called risk assessment, or they carry maybe different names, but in the bottom line is that they are risk assessment, and that risk assessment doesn't always mean that you are reporting on a conflict area, or that the team reporting on that topic and on that story is facing physical risk. It also means things like that, like acknowledging which are the challenges that come with working with other organizations, partnering with other organizations, and show that you have thought everything through, that you have considered those challenges, that you are planning that, those time buffers and the frictions that may come out of that. And that would make your application really robust, because this is especially this part of the cooperative, the collaborative effort is something that I have seen many times, being completely underestimated by by journalists pitching their stories to CORRECTIV to publish. And I think, I definitely think this will make, showing to grant givers in your application that you have thought through all these challenges that come with collaboration, can really make your application stand out, because this is something that gets forgotten most of the time. So that would be everything from me. I wanted, you highlighted other worries and other problematic issues about this email, but I wanted to show, the four that I think are the most important, and as I say, really make a difference, can really make a difference for your pitch or for your grant application, and can you really make your application stand out. I wanted to keep it short so that I can leave room for questions. And yeah, I would say now the floor is yours. Thank you. I don't know if you have questions. Maybe you can just raise your hand or write them on the chat, or just maybe they are not just questions, maybe they are just thoughts that you have on what I presented. As I said, this is based on my experience receiving them in pitches. But I don't know, you may have different experiences. So I'm happy to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you for for the heads up.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Christopher Benana. I'm a Ugandan journalist. I've contributed to Nature, Thomson Reuters, and here locally to our national newspaper, The New Vision. I'm wondering, for some granting organization, you find that the people managing the grants have never been journalists, or if they have, it's 1 year or 2 years. What's your experience? Because sometimes I think that maybe their broad knowledge of journalism is limited, or there are specific other skills they look for.
Yeah, I think, when I said about, what I said about doing your homework, I wanted to focus more on my experience as an editor, and that means I'm focusing more on the, on the content, on the content part of the pitch, or also on what has to do with the, the partnering between journalistic organizations. But you're right that sometimes the criteria can be a little bit obscure or untransparent. But what I would say is, we are journalists, so we know how to find information. So I would say read between the lines. Really pay attention to all these grant-given organizations. Donors usually have, missions and visions and values published on their website. So read very carefully what they focus on. Go and check what other projects they have funded in the past. And if possible, just talk to people within the organization. That has been pretty helpful for me, which doesn't mean that, maybe in the end, you, as I said, you tick all the boxes and you don't get the letter of intent, or you don't get the funding for your story. But what I would say is this is, for me, what I experience as something that is usually forgotten. We usually think, okay, the story is very good, and we focus only on the story. And there are other factors playing a role that are also go beyond just journalism. It's more about the project management, actually. And project management is luckily enough, is winning a lot of attention lately, because I think precisely because the cooperative and collaborative journalism is starting to be, widespread, and people have been aware, organizations are now aware that you need strong project management skills within such cooperation. So I think this is also important to keep in mind, because grant givers also see that as an issue. You can have, a huge, a great team of journalists doing a great story, but if they cannot make it work when they work together, then it may be, it may not work. And actually, some donors now, when they write up their calls, they accept that you include a fee for project management in your budget. So I think you have to look at the whole picture, definitely. I'm reading a question from Jaume on the chat. What would you recommend to a person that sends you a pitch for the first time? It's not the same to pitch to a media outlet you have collaborated with many times, but it is to pitch for the first time. Yeah, exactly. So definitely, if you don't have any, you had no contact to that person, that's definitely an issue. But that's why I wanted to use this email also as an example, because it was thought to be a first point of contact with the editor receiving the email. This is definitely something where you need to invest, where you really need to be intentional about the points that I just highlighted in my presentation. Because again, they don't, as you are completely right, they don't know you, they don't know your record. So, this is, there was a shorter version of this talk, but one thing that when I have more time, I go into more detail. And one thing that it's definitely important, and that it's also part of grant applications usually, is to send a summary of the team. If it's the first time that you are contacting this person or this editor or this organization, and it's the first time that you're pitching to them, it's definitely a good idea to share a timeline with them. Once again, you don't need, you have to decide the degree of detail. But if they see, I would say prepare like a pitch package where you have all these elements, like, okay, additional elements that I didn't mention, like a timeline. Once again, doesn't need to be too detailed. But that shows that, once again, you have thought through. You have to build that trust that they don't have with you because they don't know you. You also can include, as I said, a brief, CV of each of the members of the team, so that they see, okay, how you're. First of all, it means that you give an overview of the whole team. They can see which are your strengths, and they can also see how they can complement your team, or where are, your, so to say, your weaknesses, where they can come in, and support you. And then, as I said, if you do it with enough time, and you prepare a strong pitch, they may, it's can definitely raise their interest. And the first thing that they're going to do is to set up a call with you, and then you can, start building up from there. And if you can, try to, find someone who knows the person you want to talk to, so that, they may introduce you, so that it's not just, this cold door, you sometimes can have the feeling like you are really, when you feel like you're really, you're like a door-to-door salesman, and that you are, this cold door feeling. It's really uncomfortable. But yeah, okay, yeah, stalk people on LinkedIn. I don't know if stalk is the right word, but at least, try to, to find ways to make that connection, because definitely trust is a thing. But as I said, this is actually a smaller world than we usually think, and there's always someone who knows. The 6 degrees of separation theory, so it may also work for investigative journalism. Not at all, you're welcome. Okay, that's another question. Can you clarify if it's possible to send links without your byline, especially if it's a sensitive investigation as part of evidence? Possible to send links without your byline? I'm not sure if I understand your question when you say send links without your byline. Maybe you can just clarify it out loud, or maybe just because I don't really get what you mean. I will, in the meantime, I will answer a couple of questions coming from Frida on the chat. How to cover the potential or the risk that in the pitch that other journalists are working on similar stories without, okay, that I am knowing it. Okay, that's also, I mean, that's, you never know. I mean, that's not something. That's not something that you can. I mean, I cannot. I think I cannot come up with, you know, a very clever answer to that, because this has also happened to me, like really spending a lot of, you know, months, a lot of time, really months on a story, and always, you know, you always have this fear that that you, I mean, that someone is also working. I mean, that is also working on the same story or on a similar story, and then they break it before you do. I mean, this is always something that can happen. So I think it's part of the risk of being an investigative journalism. But in my experience, if you're really working on a very similar story with shared sources, you may find out, and then at some point you can just partner. This is, I mean, in my experience, that's had happened a couple of times where we realized, okay, someone else was doing the same story. So instead of just, you know, boycotting ourselves or cannibalizing ourselves, you know, trying to be the first to publish the story, we just partner with the other outlet. So that everyone can profit from that. So yeah, definitely. What is the best way for a student who is starting the career to get a successful pitch without having anything published previously? That's difficult if you haven't published anything. A way to do that is, once again, I don't know how it is in your country, but you usually have to do some internships or you know, some kind of work while you are still studying. So you may use the people that know you to recommend your work, or maybe you can just, you know, include their names when you pitch the story, so that they can say a good word about your work. But otherwise, as I said, I mentioned this, I explicitly mentioned this example with the students, or I mean, the very young early, I don't remember now, I think a couple of them were still students, but some other were just early career journalists. They teamed up for this story. And I mean, they were really clever, because I mean, I didn't know them. I didn't know their work. But the way they approach it, saying, hey, we know that you have done this and this and this story, and we have something that can complement, because it shows that what you are showing with your lobbying stories actually is happening. And that's why these companies are lobbying, because they don't want to be responsible for what actually is their responsibility. So this was a very, very clever. Obviously, they also had a very strong story, and that's why we in the end worked with them. But that showed that they were really intentional about that. So I would definitely do that. Find the right outlet, as I said, find the right outlet and see how your story enhances their reporting, or how it complements their story, their previous reporting. Okay, yeah, clarifying. Okay, I mean, if you have previous investigation, because I had asked about the sending links without the byline. So you mean if you have previous investigation published without your byline? Okay. I guess you mean either for security reasons or because you contributed to the reporting, but they didn't put you in the byline. I mean, if you have a good relationship with the outlet that published your investigation but didn't give you a byline for whatever reason, what I would say is, once again, try to use them as kind of, I mean, you may not need a recommendation letter, but try to use them as someone that can put up a good word for you. That's what I would definitely do if you need to prove that you have done something, but you want to show that you did this investigation, but you cannot prove it with evidence. try to contact people and to, you know, because in the end, I mean, this is how, you know, this also works. I mean, in human relationships, I mean, you need people that advocate for you if the person you're trying to reach doesn't know you. So use your contacts to do that, and especially if they are relevant. Imagine you are pitching to an editor-in-chief, and you have an editor-in-chief in a previous you know, had contact with you in your previous investigation, even if you didn't had a byline in that story. You know, I mean, an editor-in-chief receiving the recommendation from another editor-in-chief may see you under a different light than if it's maybe just a reporter. I mean, it sounds a little bit snob, a little bit, I don't know, maybe difficult, but this is how it works. So I would definitely recommend you to use your network to speak up for you, and you definitely will find someone. I'm sure you will. So how do you convince an editor that you are the right person to do a story if you are still an early career journalist, and even with some publications here and there? Yeah, I think I more or less already answered that question. You have to be very intentional about it. I mean, it obviously depends on the story, depends on the editor, depends on the kind of topic, but you have to make your pitch and your pitch stand out. And what I have experienced throughout the years is that we journalists tend to focus on the story only, as I said, and we don't pay attention to the other elements that make sure that an investigation is going to be a success, or that in this case, they're cross-border, which means cooperating with other colleagues, that this is going to be a success. And I go back to the project management skills. A lot of grant-giving organizations have realized that this has been an issue, and that some stories have failed to become, you know, what they were supposed to be. Because, I mean, let's face it, we journalists want to do the reporting, and we see and look at this, you know, project management things as bureaucracy an administrative task that we just want to get rid of. But those are also key to success in such a cooperation, because a cross-border story is a different kind of story. I mean, you are working across countries, maybe across continents. There are a lot of, you know, also cultural issues in play, and you really have to keep all that in mind. And the way to make your pitch stand out is to show that you have considered that. It doesn't mean that you need to have an answer for every problem that may come up, but at least show that you have thought that through. And this is something we don't usually do, because once again, I mean, we want to follow the story, because that's why we became journalists. But those other tasks are part of the job. And while we are at it, I would, especially if you're a young journalist and in an early career, if you are part of a cross-border investigation, something that can happen precisely because those tasks are seen as something like, you know, like side work that needs to be done, and you know, and a little bit like a pain in the neck that you want to get rid of, even if they are central. And once again, that's why now donors sometimes accept a fee for a project manager within the uplift, within the budget. What usually happens is that senior members of the team usually delegate those tasks either to younger members of the team, because it's perceived as less valuable work, even if it's also as important as having a good story, or which is also very, very common, they delegate it to the female members of the team, or both, the younger and female members of the team. So if you're an senior editor or a senior journalist in a cross-border team, please pay attention to that so that that doesn't happen. So try to split the workload in terms of, this administrative or, bureaucratic tasks. Try to split that up within the team. And if you're an early career journalist, speak up and don't let your reporting time being reduced because you're supposed to do task that is once again not perceived as so important, even if it is. So I don't know if there are any more questions. I don't see any other questions in the chat. I see a message from Fola, encouraging you to follow and to join the CCIJ's WhatsApp community. If there are no more questions, I don't see, as I said, any on the chat, but feel free to raise your hand or speak up if you have any. If you are all set in terms of questions, I have a question for you. I would like you to reflect for a minute and write in the chat or just say it out loud, which would be one takeaway from this session today. That would be very helpful for me to know, after what we have been discussing, which is one takeaway for you out of this session today. As I said, feel free to write it in the chat or just, raise your hand or, speak up.
It might look very obvious, but the main thing, in my opinion, is that pitching is a job in itself. Usually, as you said, you look at pitching as some bureaucratic thing you need to do in order to fulfill your objective. But yeah, the main take, in my opinion, would be this one, that it's a job in itself and that you should take care of the details very well before you send the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And that I didn't mention that, but it may seem like like you are losing time that you are while you are planning all the steps that I mentioned, but it will save you a lot of time in the long run. Yeah, be intentional. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, know your customer. Good that you will remember that. That's a good one. And it applies to a lot of the things that we discussed. Don't promise what you can deliver. That's also a very good one. And don't oversell your story, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Students have, yeah, absolutely. Project management, time management will save more mistakes. That's definitely something that we don't take into account because we always think, reporting is the most important thing, but project management is also, something that it's gaining track. And embrace changes, definitely. We know, world is, world is changing all the time, and you have to be open whenever you partner with others to, show flexibility. I will henceforth not only look at the story idea, but also to other elements that make the report a successful one. Yeah, definitely. I would say all these management elements. I didn't mention or I didn't frame it as project management, but most of the things that I mentioned is actually project management. And I guess if you want to work in the cross-border world, it's worth learning a couple of skills, and split the work. That's also a good one. I want to mention that because all this things like all these tasks that seem like side gigs and seem like that like they didn't have no added value, tend to be delegated, as I said, to the members of the team that are perceived as less valuable. And that is usually the case with female and with younger members of the team. And I think senior members of the team carry the responsibility not to do that, because this work is also very important. And when you're, I mean, implicitly, you are sending the message, this work is less valuable, and then you are making these people less valuable within the team, which is not, I mean, at least this is not my approach to work in teams. Everyone has something to that makes them unique and important for the team. So yeah, split the work. That's know your customer. KYC, what's that again? That's know your customer. Yeah. You could also summarize that as do your homework, but yeah, know your customer. So research the person or the outlet you are pitching to.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. It's 4 minutes to the top of the hour, and I don't know if there's still more feedback, but Olaya, great. This has been great advice. I have learned so much, and I want to appreciate you for taking the time to do this with us. I also want to appreciate everyone who joined this workshop today, and everyone who contributed, and for those of you who follow the link to join our WhatsApp community, thank you so much. Please, if you haven't done that, feel free to do that. We have several channels within the community. We have the African Investigative Journalism, the journalist community is right in there. So if you're a journalist working in Africa, you can join that as well. You'll find it in that community. We have the resources channel where we share resources, ebooks, tools that can help you in your work. We also have the grants channel where any upcoming open grants, we share them as well, so you can join. We have a job board where if there are any job openings within our community or within our partners community, we try as much as possible to post job openings. We have a training and fellowships channel, openings or any upcoming trainings and fellowship applications that are open. We post it in there as well. And then a discussions channel where if you have questions or you just want to engage with, colleagues, you're free to, to participate in that as well. So all of these channels are within the CCIJ members community on WhatsApp. So you can follow the link and join the community. I also want to let you know that the recording of this session will be up on YouTube later on in the week, maybe the latest. So if you want to go back to just to take a refresh or to recap, you can go back on our YouTube channel and watch the recording and take notes. So thank you very much. We're on LinkedIn. We do this every month, like I said. So next month, pay attention to, if you're in the WhatsApp community, you already know, and then you can check out our LinkedIn or our Twitter or Instagram. You'll see the updates for upcoming sessions next month. So thank you so much, everyone. Last word.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the insightful questions and thoughts. It was also really interesting for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.